So thanks for spending an hour of your evening, or maybe even your afternoon, or your early hours of the morning, depending on what time zone you are with me. I'm aiming for this to be a highly informative session. I'm going to give you tons and tons of really practical advice and tips. And really, this is all about just exponentially increasing the amount of women that you're interacting with, and interacting with far more of the women that you want. I decided to do this webinar after speaking to so many guys and realizing that a kind of a core issue was that they simply weren't getting on enough women's radars. Maybe they lacked the confidence to approach women in real life, that their lifestyle wasn't set up in a way where they really met or interacted with any new women, that they weren't getting any matches online. And without that traction in your dating life, it's really hard for you to get enough feedback to also refine your skills and become better at interacting with women. So this is really all about increasing your options and being able to meet more women. And we're going to be really drilling down into all of those different ways that will affect your ability to interact with women successfully. We'll be looking at what commonly might be holding you back from expressing interest in a woman in real life. We'll be looking at your lifestyle. We'll be looking at your dating app profiles. We'll be looking at your messages. We'll be looking at how you express intention and attraction to the women you're interacting with. So there's a lot of really, really great information here. If you're watching live, there's also going to be lots of opportunities, particularly at the end of the session, for you to ask me your questions. So hopefully you're going to come away with a lot of advice. If you can make notes on this session, I'd highly recommend it, although I will be sending around a recording, and it will be live for 48 hours from tomorrow after this session has run. So another kind of big determining factor for me in running this session, and I know if you're looking at that PowerPoint now, you might be thinking, have I tuned into the wrong thing? Is, as you know, I coach women as well, and by far and away, their biggest dating question is, so where have all the men gone? Which is strange if you think about it, because I think most men assume that particularly attractive, yeah, I know you guys are here, attractive women are just if anything, overwhelmed by choice. But the fact that that's the most common women's dating advice question, that tells you a lot about how women are experiencing dating and why they're not seeing you. So it's not that good men don't exist. It's that good men can often find it really hard to express intentions because they feel censored by society, or they worry about being creepy. Good men also may just not be equipped with the skill set to be like a YouTube pickup artist and, successfully approach a woman anywhere. Good men may also just not present themselves in the best possible way in their dating app profile. And good men may not naturally have developed a really great style for messaging women. So even though you feel like she's an abundance of choice, and maybe she has tons of followers on Instagram or TikTok, maybe you think that she's overwhelmed with matches on her dating app profile. For a woman, until she kind of interacts with a guy and feels like there's a possibility for a relationship there, it's almost like she doesn't see you. You're not on her radar at all. And she will actively kind of discount any attention that she gets that's like she doesn't want, right? So if a guy makes eye contact with her in a nightclub but doesn't interact with her, if a guy slides her a DM but doesn't interact with her, if she gets lots of matches on a dating app but they don't really turn into anything, or if she meets the kind of men who do come across in that confident and assertive way, but then they can't offer her the relationships that she wants, again, she's going to feel like she's in this big deficit of men. So part of my goal is also to help you but get more effective at getting onto her radar so that she recognizes that you're out there, because I 100% know from working with so many of you that there's loads of great guys out there, and it's like there's this massive communication meltdown where she doesn't even understand that you exist. If you guys, I'm thinking because you're on my webinar, you already know a lot about me, but if you don't, let me just give you a quick introduction to who I am, and then I'll talk to you about the structure of the session tonight so you can also understand which bits are going to be most relevant to you. So I'm Hayley Quinn. I've worked in the dating industry as a coach for 15 years. I started off coaching for lots of the world's most famous pickup artists on their boot camps and training programs. And I was kind of fascinated by this idea that you could learn skills for dating as an introvert and reformed geek myself. I thought that was really cool. And my goal was really to take some of the interesting parts of this advice, but to make it a little bit more modern, a little bit more sophisticated, and also to kind of bring it so it's not just for men as well. So I think that's actually really cool, the fact that I've been able to work with women as well. And it's given me the ability, I think, to hopefully be somewhat impartial and sit between these two kinds of people who want to meet one another, but just never seem to be able to make it happen. You may have known I've done a TED Talk, I've written some books around dating, and I'm also the spokesperson for Match, which means I see an awful lot of online dating profiles and messages as well. So I have plenty of behind the scenes stats on dating apps, and I also have a lot of anecdotal information on what makes a dating app successful. So we're not going to start with dating apps. We're going to start with what inhibits you from communicating more effectively with women, and kind of drilling actually into your excuses. Following that, we're going to look to a little bit on lifestyle. Then we're going to look at your dating app profile, messages, and finally how you communicate your intentions to women. Then I'm going to be giving you some follow-up points on how you can continue to kind of work on this and chip away, and some extra resources as well. So when it comes to excuses, why am I starting here? It's because I know that provided you live in a relatively populated area, you're probably going to be seeing opportunities to interact with women on maybe even nearly a daily basis, provided you're not doing too much work from home. And what might hold you back from interacting with women isn't that you feel like you have nothing to say, but it's that feeling like what I have to say isn't funny, or it isn't relevant, or why would she want to hear that? Or I don't have anything that's like good quality enough that it would make sense for me to interact with her. So just to ask a question, if for those of you who are listening, what would stop you from interacting and approaching a woman that you want? What's the excuse that comes up for you? What's something that would get in the way of you taking the action that you need to meet someone? Fumbling. So, okay, I'm going to write some notes. Fumbling lines. It's crowded. Not knowing what to say. Okay, great. Not feeling attractive. Bad at judging their age. Okay, I have to see them again. Fear of rejection. Girls don't want to be bothered. Okay, I am just going to go through a few of these. And by the way, if I don't get around to going through your unique excuse for not taking action, remember, I'm going to do a Q&A at the end of this section, and I would love to work with you on this. So I have taught a lot of guys, not just via Zoom or webinars, but I have got out there in the real world and stood by many a man, and interestingly, many a woman, as they're trying to approach someone. And it's not that I find so often that the biggest stopgap to you taking that action isn't the next piece of the conversation. It's not that you don't have anything to say, or that you have a uninteresting life, or that you're not attracted. It's that there's an excuse or something that will come up in your mind, and it will actually stop you from taking that action. So what I'm trying to do here is to get this idea that if we can get to grips with what your excuses are and actually remove them, it's going to free you up to take a lot more action, which, as your dating coach, this is what I intend for you to do, right? Because we're here to get you to, again, going back to the point of the session, it's about enabling you to meet more women, so you have more interactions, so you develop confidence, so you develop feedback loops, so you actually get some traction in your dating life, rather than year after year passes you by and it's the same thing. So I want you to notice that a lot of the excuses that came up here are to do with performing or getting something right, which is, I'm worried about fumbling my lines. I'm worried that I don't have anything interesting to say. I can't think of anything cool or witty to say to her. Now, I want you to, if we take a second to analyze that excuse, the mindset it's coming from is that really, that opening line, if you don't say something that is confident and funny and awesome and interesting, is that she's not going to react in the way that you want. In fact, that is so far away from how people actually process the start of the interaction. So when you go into an interaction and you're looking for that great line or that great witty relevant thing to say to her, it's almost like you think you've got one opportunity in that moment to make that first impression, and that also her first reaction to you is demonstrates whether she sees you as a potential boyfriend or lover. And in fact, none of that is actually happening. Step into her shoes for a second and think, what do you think she's thinking in those first few seconds of meeting you? What do you think's going through her mind in the first, like, say, 15 seconds of interacting with you when you've walked up to her? Yeah, what do you want? Who is this guy? Right. Who is this guy? So before she's met you, what's she thinking about? She may be thinking about some other guy that she's seeing. She might be thinking about work. She might be thinking about food. And then suddenly there's somebody in front of her and she has to figure out what this social interaction is about. So often her first facial expression, her first reaction to you will read confused or like, huh? And that doesn't mean that she doesn't like you or doesn't or there's not potential for her to like you. It just means that she's been going along like da, 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 thinking about my day, and then suddenly there's a man in front of her and she has to kind of quickly assess the social situation. There's a point to me saying this. If someone has to quickly assess the social situation, and yes, part of that might be, what's this guy's intentions? Is he a threat? Does he want something from me? What's going on? When you're trying to assess a social situation, what you don't need is something super clever or super witty, because often and I've actually witnessed this, if you say something amazingly clever, sometimes what the reaction you get is confusion, because it's like too much information too fast. Like she can't process it. And so it's ironic, really, that this feeling like you need something awesome to say holds so many men back from making that first step, when really, what are we trying to achieve here? The first step of an interaction is simply about successfully getting her attention and communicating a message to her that's easy to understand. Like, I can't emphasize the easy to understand bit enough. So what do you think what are some things, both in terms of your body language and your communication, that you could do to actually make it easier for her to understand why you're connecting with her? What would make that easier for her? Remember, we're not assuming she's judging you on how witty and awesome your first line is, because she's not an approach robot who's about to sort you into a yes or no category. Instead, if we start the interaction with the assumption that she just doesn't know what this is about and you need to do something simple to get this going, and it's a communications exercise, and that actually, what's the self-confident mindset here? That she has every reason that she could like you. She just doesn't know anything about you yet. So there's no reason for her to like you. So Rosh says, hey, what's your name? What are you doing? Okay, I'll get back to your question back in a second. I just want to hear from anybody else. Does anyone else have any suggestions about how we can get away from this idea that you need to say something super awesome and witty and great, and how we can instead think about the start of an interaction as a basic communication skills exercise and ease of comprehension? What's going to make it easier for her to understand why you're there and what you're about? Okay, so I'll give you some non-verbal things that we want to do. The most basic principle to start with is you need to have her full and undivided attention. So if she's not really listening to you before you start talking, the words are going to go completely over her head. So I want you to think about if you were like a stand-up comedian and you went on stage and you started telling your jokes, but the audience was kind of still getting sat in their seats, they probably won't find the joke funny, not because the joke isn't funny, but simply because they haven't been focused on what's going on. So again, going back to simplicity here, what's the simple things we can do? It could be saying, hey, and then pausing, or excuse me, pause. And you actually want to say that and hold your space and wait for her to go and listen to you. And just simply, instead of rushing from going, hey, I want to say you look nice today. Instead of doing that, if you just say, hey, I just noticed that you're over there and I want to say you look nice today. A simple restructure of what you're saying to create more clarity will actually make that message connect a lot more easily with her. Likewise, if you provide some context as to why you're there. So you give a very good thing for you guys to do is to give some backstory. It's to say something like, it's funny that I saw you. I was actually just on my way to work, or it's funny that I saw you. Like, my friends dragged me to this bar. I like never go out. Anything that gives some context about who you are or who you're with or what you're doing there at that moment in time. Or you say, hey, it's funny that I saw you. I live over the other side of town, but I just came here to do my shopping. It sounds so basic and so not exciting, but it builds trust by providing her with information about who you are. Likewise, for those of you who have a strong accent that isn't native to the area that you happen to be living in, saying, hey, I just want to say you look nice today. I say, as you can hear, I've still got my, I've been living here 10 years, still haven't lost the accent. Simple trust building pieces of communication like that can be really powerful. So I want to get you off this idea that you need to have a super awesome thing to say. No woman processes the start of an interaction like, is that the most witty, amazing thing a man has ever said to me? Do I like him? Yes or no? And remember, her first reaction to you is just a processing information reaction. It's not a judgment about whether she could like you or not. And that whole first interaction is a process of communicating why you could connect. And also, maybe you don't. Maybe you think she's got nothing to say, or there's just no connection and you walk away. And that's also a very, very cool thing for you guys to do. So that's just one excuse. Of course, there's many. One last little helpful exercise I'd suggest that you do around excuses is, if you are aiming to actively approach women in real life, even if you go out and you approach absolutely no women, but you keep a note on your phone of every single excuse that comes up for you that stops you from being highly proactive and taking the action that you want. Once you get to know your excuses, they're often a lot easier for you to be able to manage, to recognize as excuses, and to ultimately override and dismiss. So the process of meeting more women in real life, it is about being more targeted in terms of the areas that you go to. It's also about getting to know your excuses, understanding what's really going down in an interaction, and really knowing also that the skills that you need to develop are actually skills around simplicity and communication. It isn't this huge performance or huge thing you need to do. My goal, as well, as I said, is at the moment, there might be maybe 5% of the guys out there are really comfortable approaching women. And perhaps those are the only men that women think are out there, because there's the rest of you guys are holding back. And instead, it's about, if you want to bring balance into that and to allow her to realize you're out there, we need to get you to be much more radically proactive. This is where your lifestyle also matters. So a lot of the time, Matt Poulton, basically what I'm hearing is women don't need to make the first move. No, they often don't, because I think sometimes that they will rely on men making a first move on them. Women do sometimes seek to send signals to men, but think of it this way. Most men, or lots of men, don't know intuitively what's a great way to approach a woman. Likewise, lots of women don't intuitively know what's an easy way to send signals to a man or to create an opportunity for a man to approach them. A lot of women are really disconnected from that and find that really difficult, or they find themselves feeling shy or overwhelmed. So I'm not saying, by the fact I'm encouraging you to take more action, that women shouldn't take any action. All I'm saying is for each of us as individuals, if this is an area of your life that you want to absolutely tackle and improve, just like if I decided I wanted to become, I don't know, the CEO of a bigger company, or if I wanted to get super fit, it's going to require time, dedication, energy, and learning into that process. And that's the deal that we all have to sign up for. So that fits in nicely to my next point, which is about lifestyle. Weirdly, women and men often lead asymmetric social lifestyles. Single women may feel a bit awkward and judged around being single as well. And often they might offset that by spending a lot of time filling up their time. Or if they don't feel any awkwardness around being single, perhaps they're like in their 20s and they've got a lot of choice and they're not really feeling any pressure around that yet. Women are still very focused on the where when it comes to dating. Women don't often think, how do I meet more men? How can I improve this area of my life? Instead, they think, where are the men? So they see going out and going to different places and having cultivating an active social circle as just really important to their dating lives. So what you'll get is women who stay in touch with their friends, nurture their social circles, figure out how to go to the cool place, that take up the hobbies, that are busy and out every evening. And that really contrasts a lot of single men's lifestyles who work, maybe have a fitness thing, have some friends they meet for coffee or a family commitment or some chores, and then that's it. So again, how we cultivate your lifestyle, it's got to be one where we're really encountering a lot more women. I would say ideally, I want you to be having like a conversation a day, at least with someone who's different. So it's like 5 to 10 women or different interactions a week. Now, building a lifestyle around that can be really, really helpful. So let's look at one simple change you can make to make it easier for you to meet and interact with women. So here's something that is true. I 100% believe that you can meet people absolutely anywhere. You can meet them on the street, in coffee shops, at a bar, on holiday, at an airport lounge, wherever. And mastering that skill can be really liberating and is super fun. However, if you meet a woman and there's context there, it often means that it's more likely to actually lead to a date. So what do I mean by context? I mean that she feels that you're part of a shared community or interest. So for instance, if you both go to the same dance class, social dance class, or you're both members of the same running club, or you'll both go to the same members bar, or yes, you both go to the same gym that's a small gym in a local area, anything like that, where she feels like, or the best of them all, if she met you at a friend's party, then that interaction is so much more likely to lead to a successful outcome. You also want to think really in terms of your lifestyle, in terms of how you can create opportunities to meet women where there's plenty of context. So that could be developing more friendship, platonic relationships, female friends. It could be looking at adapting your social circle so you feel a bit more of like a hub of a party or a social lifestyle. It could be joining a club. All of these things will mean that when you do make an approach, it's going to be easier for you to make that connection. This lifestyle that you're communicating around is also reflected in your dating app communication. Now, I'm going to be really candid with you about dating apps. For some guys out there, they can work really, really well. For other guys out there, not so much. Sometimes, and to give you some pretty tough stats from Tinder, if you feel like you haven't had the best time on dating apps, and I warn you, the stat will make you feel like life is really unfair, but I'm going to hopefully help to solve that for you. I think on average on Tinder, women get a 33% match rate. So every guy they like, for every 3 guys they like, 1 they'll match with. For men, the average match rate is 2.2%. So that's pretty, I don't know how many. So for every 50 women you swipe yes to, you get 1 match. Like that is a significant difference. Also, that means that lots of dating apps have more male users than female users, and even a high performing male profile guy who's kind of crushing it on dating apps maybe gets a 9% match rate. So again, like 1 in 10 that he swipes. So it's important to understand, and if you feel like if you feel a lot of frustration around the dating app thing, it's important to put that into context of the wider stats around it, and to understand as well there are things that you can do to improve your dating app performance. It is a bit like, so here's some obvious things that you can tweak. For one, it's utilizing all of the app's functionalities and features. So for instance, with Hinge at the moment, it now has the ability for you to put little videos on there. If you can use videos, polls, voice notes, your profile will improve, not only just because the dating app likes the fact that you're using all of its cool features, but it gives women more interaction with you. It gives them a better, more holistic understanding of who you are. And I've seen through people that I've coached that by adding in these more multimedia features, their profiles get a really, really nice boost. She wants to feel like the man that she's interacting with is on the same level as her in terms of his level of social understanding and awareness. Because of that, that's why, and it is intimidating, I totally agree. But in order to crush a dating app profile and to start to get it to perform better, as I said, we need to do 3 really key things. 1, utilize all of the dating apps' functionality and features. You leave a voice note on your profile. Hinge does polls, which is you can ask a question and women can tap to select a response. More engaging, use those. Video, short kind of reel-like videos, again, perform incredibly well. And interestingly, the video content I've seen absolutely killing it on dating apps isn't what you'd expect. It's not like, I don't know, doing a black run or like wrestling a polar bear or something super awesome like that. Sometimes the coolest video content has just been a guy hanging out with his friends in a really cool setting, and it's just like a 5-second clip of his life of him hanging out or maybe working on his laptop. Incredibly, that photo, that really candid feeling video content does really well. So we don't have the time I'd like in this session to really explore that, but to plant an idea in your mind, utilizing polls, voice notes, and videos will definitely help you. Second thing that will help is to swipe less. So with an app's algorithm, if it sees you swiping yes to everyone, but actually not many people are swiping back yes to you, it can figure out that your relative attractiveness isn't as high. So sometimes it can also be worth, if you are going to redo your online dating profile, just doing a hardcore reset of that in case that you've had a poor swipe ratio in the past. Okay, so great question. I'm going to quickly jump to this, and I will have time for more questions at the end. So voice note ideas, there's, I think, again, keeping it cool and nonchalant. For instance, just if you do have an accent, saying something like, just uploading this in case you're curious what my accent sounds like. Or that could be cool because it's this balance of engaging with the feature, but also not trying too hard or being cliche. I don't know if you're talking about me or you there. It says posh BBC English accent, but if you said that, I think that, oh, posh. Again, for you could say, I've been told I have a BBC accent. Please confirm or deny. Just like very short, kind of witty, self-assured. That content would be great. Here's an example of a poll that I saw performing really well. And again, the poll was witty. It was modern. It was cool. And I think it really spoke to a Gen Z or a millennial woman. And it said something like, which one of these should be banned? But then it was like climate change, positive affirmations, And then it's had another third option that was kind of silly. So it went in with some quite what's the right word here? It was kind of content that was pretty attention grabbing. It wasn't safe. It was kind of edgy. And I think, again, that edgy, witty content can that edgy, witty content can be much more attention grabbing because it demonstrates social confidence with the fact that you have gone out there with some pretty bold responses. In fact, internally, we've tested this out with some male members of my coaching team. And when they went more out there in terms of their responses, their profiles actually perform better in terms of more matches. So whoever said they got a Jamie Dornan accent, you could say, flatter me and tell me I sound like Jamie Dornan. You know, like, again, that would be kind of daring, but cool. So to go back to our thing, we want to utilize all of the app's functionality and features. We want to work on your swipe ratio. And if you've gone overboard on that before, we want to do a hardcore reset. Then we also really want to, yes, good question. I'm just going to pick up on this quickly. Dating apps, a good way to thinking about them. It isn't about conveying information. Many men approach building a dating app profile as a telling information exercise, which is, I like tennis, I work here, this is where I like to go for meatballs. And really, that information often doesn't land with your intended audience. Instead, what will work much better is to demonstrate social intelligence, wit, assertiveness, even if some of your responses on your question cards don't actually tell a woman that much about you and what you do, but they're more about her reading it and laughing or smiling or thinking, haha, he sounds like a fun person to hang out with. Like, that more qualitative information is actually more important. So as your general approach, that's a big shift to make. I've also pulled together here some really good dating app photos. I have stolen a lot of these. I'm going to give credit for this as well. It's from a blog by Esquire. So in the follow-up to this, I will send a recording of this session, and I'm also going to send links to resources. And I would stalk this blog out because, yes, it's like an intimidating level of, wow, that's a good photo, but it gives you some really good ideas about, again, these are actually top-rated Instagram, the coolest guys on Instagram. I think that's the title of the blog. So it gives you good ideas about styling and also for your photos. Likewise, there's another cool blog for a company I do some work with called Hey Saturday, and they have also some pretty good ideas on their profile. But I think the Esquire blog scores higher for kind of coolness. So let's just quickly go through why some of these aesthetics work. You'll notice that there isn't one right way of having a super cool profile. The styling of these pictures generally will be really cool. The guys are going to be well centered within the image. So you'll notice that none of these pictures, the guys aren't over here, they're not here, they're not here, they're not here. Having a nice amount of space around you, a little bit at the top and on the sides of your photos, looks aesthetically more pleasing. I would suggest before you go and embark on taking any more dating app photos that you think about your style and what you're wearing, and also about your body language poses. You'll also notice a commonality between these three quite different photos is their background is non-distracting. You don't feel like the background, there's nothing, just like, I've got quite a distracting background today. I've seen guys that have the background where they're sat on a train seat. And again, that just isn't aesthetically pleasing. Here are some other cool pictures that, again, are, I take your point, slightly more approachable. Guy on the bike, looking really, again, think about the lifestyle he's communicating there. He's saying, I'm fashionable, I've got a kind of like hipster bike, I've got a camera, I look like a cool person to hang out with. This middle guy looks a bit more tech entrepreneur. Also, if you do have a photo where the color palette isn't really working for you, just putting the photo into black and white can sometimes be helpful to make it seem really cool. And this final photo, I didn't get the best example of it that I would like, but I want you to imagine that the guy that you are is maybe the guy in the plaid shirt or the guy in the V-neck. It's like you're not in terms of a group shot, sometimes showing you socializing, but in action, and not a group of guys with your arms all around one another, but showing almost like a photo that's taken that looks like it's a candid. And yes, these are all professional photos that I've stolen from Esquire's blog. However, and that's because I have seen many great men's dating profiles, but in the name of customer privacy, I can't reveal those to you tonight. All I can do is try and find as close matches and examples from the internet and credit them. So the ideas I want you to really focus on, again, I know this might feel like, holy cow, this is like a lot of stuff to do, but it is doable. There are changes that you can make today to your online dating, to how many women you interact with in real life, which are going to start to turn some levers in your dating life so you can start to meet a lot more women and then start to have more interactions and more feedback. And I know you probably feel tired from trying, and you probably feel like she's not trying, and she is trying in her own way. My goal really is to try by increasing your knowledge around women, and also to give you some really like tough maybe at times but clear advice around dating stuff, is just to accelerate that learning curve so you can get to your results quicker. And remember, you do not need to be the world's greatest pickup artist. You just need to interact with enough women that you feel like you have choice, and that you feel confident, and that you feel like you're not in a rut with your dating life. And I thoroughly understand it is not easy being a guy out there. There's a lot of shaming around men and sexuality, and it's hard, but ultimately the rewards of being bold and proactive are so worth it. On that note, before I continue, and we're next going on to messaging advice, so we're going to get really technical as well around hopefully some easy wins you can make with your messaging style. I also wanted to remind you guys out there that I have my Academy 10-week course starting on May the 1st, so it's coming up. And just for the people that have watched this webinar, if you use that discount code there, Academy23, you actually get £200 off the course, which is about, I think, a 15% off our course that involves doing a real life boot camp in London. We also have an online only academy, which you can study from anywhere in the world. And that gives you, I think, about a 33% discount, but this only for when this webinar is open. So it'll work for the next 3 days or so, and after that, it won't work anymore. I mention it because in Academy, all of these areas we're looking at, whether it's approaching women in real life, rebuilding your online dating profile, working on your messaging, lifestyle, we tackle all of those areas over 10 weeks of masterclass webinars, which are like this, but much more personal. We will have a small group of guys, which would enable me to actually personally rebuild your dating app profile, to personally coach around strategy, to personally coach around conversation. You also get a WhatsApp group where you get 24/7 coaching over 10 weeks. So you can ask literally any message, anytime you're stuck in a message, just ask us. This also includes a live coaching weekend in London for those who want to attend. It's not mandatory, and that's on June 2nd, 3rd, 4th. And I'm going to travel back to London especially so I can coach the whole weekend. And I'm genuinely looking forward to getting out there. It's like Academy is the only event where I get in the field and coach. So if you want to do it, as I said, there's a discount code there, Academy23. It's going to work for, I think, the next 3 days. But moving on, the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about is about where your good profile is just to start. We know also that messaging could be the next area where things can be tricky, especially when you get women's profiles that look a little bit like this. Again, I have replaced that image, but the profile is otherwise real. And you can see that typically this woman's About Me section doesn't really give you a lot to work with, right? And it is incredibly difficult for you to be witty and super awesome into a vacuum. So what we would do there is, if we look at this woman, she said that she's got a little Canadian flag. And on that, can you guys have any idea about what you could send there as a first message to her? This is a good and I put this as a deliberately tough one because she's not giving you a lot to work with. You said start with hockey. So it's funny that you say that, because I think much like your witty one-liners that you put in your dating app profiles, kind of the messaging, the knack of that is mastering the witty one-liner for her too. I think there's some solid suggestions being made in the chat here. So if you're like, struggle with your messaging, here's what I think is great about messages. When you find some messaging frameworks that kind of work, and these are sort of fill in the blank style suggestions, you can take that format and you can use that again with different persons. So when you're creating and curating messages, it shouldn't feel like you're having to reinvent the wheel every time you message her. It should feel like maybe you have to really work on your messaging style for the first, 20, 50 women you message. But after that, you have a solid set of messages and templates that you can go to. So in a nice way, picking on you, saying things like, you're Canadian, please tell me you know Ryan Reynolds. That's a template. You are blank, ? Please tell me you know blank. I'm trying to think of a different, cool member of a different nationality, and my mind is going blank at the moment. So you could say, for instance, you're French, ? Please tell me please tell me you're eating a croissant right now. Again, like that formula, you can just whip it up again. So it can give this feeling of a really witty, cool, awesome message, but one that you haven't had to like labor over time and time again. So again, a lot of the coaching that we do, including the work on Academy, it's about how can we get these templates going for you guys so that you can have that witty one-liner, but you've got so many messages in your back pocket that you can send. And here are a few other examples of some templates that you can utilize. So the ... represents the blank. It's like fill in the blank. For instance, ... are underrepresented on your profile. If it's a Canadian woman, you could put maple syrups underrepresented on your profile. So you've just taken the idea that she's Canadian, thought of something you associate with Canada, maple syrup, great, let's do that. Underrepresented on your profile. I was advising a guy recently who had maple syrup, pro or con. So again, there's another example there of a template message, blankety blank, : pro or con. So for those guys there, I think to say there's some damn witty guys in this room, but if you feel like this isn't you and this is some area that you struggle with, I would be making notes on these templates. If it's Hinge, you could reply to one of her statement messages or her pictures with yes in capital this, how's blank going? So that's almost like Keith, yes to this, how's being a witch doctor going? So there's again, it's just a blankety blank. I'm blank too. Are you my almost clone? I'm half Canadian too. Are you my almost clone? So even if you can't think of anything and you're strapped for inspiration, say, I was trying to think of a witty opening line here. Or look, I'm just going to cut right to the chase and say, your profile, like I was impressed by your profile. I already feel like I know I want to chat more. So good templates that work. Once you've figured out some messages that are effective, it shouldn't actually be so difficult to think of good and witty opening one-liners. And remember, the purpose for doing this is because she reads that witty one-liner opening one-liner, and that tells her about your level of social intelligence and awareness. I know it's also frustrating when you get something like that and perhaps she messages you and she gives you, again, these are real messages that I've just taken from messaging interactions that I've reviewed. Yes, you are supposed to avoid how's your day going openers. However, you can make, if you're stuck on that, you can make it witty by just acknowledging it. It's 8 p.m. Friday and all my wittiness has deserted me. So I'm going to ask you, how's your day going? Like if you say that, immediately it's not just a how's your day going opener. So you can be smart. What I'm trying to, I guess, think of ways for you to do is ways that you can be smart and witty and have awesome opening messages, but with minimal effort. Here's my premise. If I can get you to be far better at meeting, connecting, and interacting with lots of women, you will actually get to a point, as unimaginable as it might feel now, where you have options. And because of that, you simply can't pursue all options. So one of your earliest decision-making points you have to have in your interactions with women is simply, what is she investing at all in this interaction? Or am I just going to start putting too much time and energy and effort into this without her really ever meeting me part of the way? If a woman isn't being very responsive on a dating app, or she's really difficult to talk to in real life, or you're on a date and it's just there's like a lack of vibe or connection, part of that is recognizing, hang on, I've got limited personal resources as a person. If I can walk away, that might actually improve my self-esteem with dating, and then I can save more energy for interactions that are going to be more purposeful. Nikki, often actually no, though that's a great question. Is it because she's waiting for someone better than you who she would invest in? Well, here's what you got to think. A lot of guys assume that it's almost like women are in this perfect state, ready to date, and whether an interaction works or not is really down to how skillful the guy is, how confident he is, how attractive he is, blah, blah, blah. What men don't realize is that just like those excuses we identified for you, where you're getting in the way of yourself from being as successful as you could be with the women in your life, there's also plenty of women, no matter how attractive, how popular, how smart, who also actively get in the way of themselves every single day, forming good relationships with men. And that's on her, whether that's because she has social anxiety, or she rejects before she gets rejected, or whether she's hung up on an ex who's never going to give her what I want. I don't know. There's 1,000 reasons why she may also not be ready to meet you and not be ready to participate on the level that she could do. So it's important to recognize this, because then you get some power back in the interaction and you start to think, actually, is this ever going to go right? Or is she just, if I've done all this work to get to the place where I'm on a date with her, has she done that work yet or not? If it's a not, you're limited in how much you could do. And often she would bring those same behaviors to any interaction she's with, even if the guy's got I don't know, a Lamborghini or something, or a famous footballer or whatever, she's still the same woman, When you create discernment, it's going to be easier for you to really cultivate great interactions. And then also remember, you can choose to purposefully communicate with her. Why often expressing your intentions may not land or connect in the way that you want is because she doesn't know if she likes you yet. You're still in her mental waiting room of figuring out if she likes you. And if you express interest too strongly at the wrong moment, it can feel jarring to her. Instead, when she senses that she doesn't know you to like you, and you don't know her to like her, and you're still assessing her, and you're still figuring her out, and you've still got standards, that actually makes it easier for her to feel attracted to you, and she'll feel more like you're on the same wavelength. So it's a big topic, how and when to express intentions. It was kind of chewed through by my 5 minutes of technical downtime, but maybe we can also answer some questions around that. Anyway, we're almost we're going to run over, and we're almost at the top of the hour as it is. So I'm going to go into Q&A. But again, I just wanted to remind you that if you found some of this information useful, there's so much more work that we could be actively doing to work on this. And whilst you may come out this webinar being like, oh man, I could do this and this and this and this, that's good. It's better to have stuff to work on and have things that you can change, rather than feeling like there's nothing you can change and you're just stuck in a rut. That's helpful. As I said, the best opportunity that's coming up for us to coach together and work together is Academy. It's coming up on May 1st. It lasts for 10 weeks. You can study it entirely remotely, so you do not need to be in London to do this. However, if you do want to come to London, we also do a live training portion on June 2nd and 3rd, 4th. It's 20 hours of live coaching. I will be there for the weekend. You can use the discount code that's active for 3 more days. It's Academy23, and it gives you £200, or about like, that might be $275. Don't know. It's a lot of money off the course, but it's only for the next 3 days. And as I said, this is just a tiny snippet of some of the information that I will be working on with you. I will rebuild your profiles. I am going to help you with your messaging and your conversation skills, and to get you onto a different way of thinking about these problems so that you can tackle them so much more effectively. And that's what I really want to achieve. Thank you for making me smile so much. I've had a really, really enjoyable session. I would love to see some of you guys on Academy, as I said, starting May 1st. Hope to see you there. Academy23 gives you that really nice discount for the next few days. And I'll be back again soon with another free session, and I will send you guys a recording of this tomorrow. So check out your emails. As I said, apart from the information I gave, some of the other guys on this session absolutely crushed it with some of their suggestions as well. So to make the most of it, definitely watch that one again. Have a great evening, guys, and I'll see you again soon.